Hello, I wanted to welcome everybody to Tech Talk. This is Tricia Sauer with Nex-Tech, and we're proud to announce the unveiling of the Nex-Tech Private Cloud. Just a reminder that if you have any questions, please type them in the questions pane or raise your hand, and we'll unmute your phone at the end and you can ask your question verbally. We will take all questions and answer them all at the end of the presentation as well. We've had a slight change in presenters today. Mark St. Peter is stepping in for Steve Riot, so it'll be Mark St. Peter and Mike Derfler, our cloud specialist here at Nex-Tech. I'll turn it over to Mark and Mike and let them take it away. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Trish, and this is Mark with Nex-Tech, and I'm really excited today for this presentation, the unveiling of the Nex-Tech Private Cloud. And I just wanted to kick it off by starting out with what we think of cloud. We all have seen this image before. We know everybody's been talking about cloud for a long time. And so we kind of look at this image, seeing, all our connecting points connecting into this, virtual cloud. But we always get those questions of, where's this cloud at? Where are these servers at? Where's my data? Is it safe? Is it secure? So we have a lot of these questions. And what's really neat is that Nex-Tech has come out with a great service, our private cloud. And this is actually a picture from our data center in Russell, Kansas. Kind of show you a little bit about what our cloud looks like. Very similar to the picture we saw on the last slide. But, it's basically a bunch of racks in a room. We've got a bunch of servers. We've got APC, all safe, secure, protected. You know where it is, you know who we are, so you just kind of get a good snapshot of what our cloud looks like. Mike, I'd like to, see with you or check with you here and see, tell us a little bit about the Nex-Tech Private Cloud and how it all came about.
You bet. Good morning, everybody. As the first slide stated, cloud means anything, or cloud computing can mean anything, including the kitchen sink. Cloud actually consists of anything offered as a service, whether it's an infrastructure as a service, software as a service, hardware as a service, security as a service, email as a service, and so on. So you can see cloud means many different things. And actually, Nex-Tech has been involved in cloud services long before cloud was cool. Nex-Tech's made a huge investment in a data center for our own internal use, along with being able to offer these services to our customers. If anybody's been fortunate enough to go into a data center, you'll know that there's not much there. I mean, outside of a lot of, like Mark said, a lot of big racks, a lot of flickering lights, climate-controlled environment, and usually it's pretty chilly in there. But the key to cloud services is security. Security, basically, what I mean when I say security is the customer's data is housed on one or multiple servers in the data center, and everything from power management, data backups, and security updates, virus protection are all included in a cloud solution. So it's a very sterile environment and probably a lot more secure than having an on-premise, server or whatever. There's a bit of a misconception that having a cloud server or cloud-based server is less expensive than a physical, but you have to figure in that a cloud solution offers everything. Everything is inclusive, and basically keeping that server alive, typically as long as the physical server is being able to access or is accessible in a customer's environment. It's left alone until it dies, and then the end user finds out backups having to run and data is corrupt and it costs thousands to retrieve. Where in a hosted solution in a data center, these things are all constantly monitored and tested to guarantee uptime, and a lot of data centers guarantee 5 nines and things like that. And the way these goals are reachable is, a very strict, secure environment. In a nutshell.
Great. So, thanks, Mike. And I know you kind of touched on, some of the definition of cloud, but, we get a lot of questions on, cloud services and what type of business applications, what type of IT services, and those types of things that you can put in the cloud. And it can range from anything from, a single server, multi-server, a specific software application. It's very flexible and can be pretty much anything that you're looking for from that standpoint. So talking a little bit more about our private cloud that we've set up, like I mentioned, we've got the data center in Russell. You saw a couple pictures of. We've also got another data center in Victoria, Kansas. We've got possibility of some layer 2 connectivity. And, the best thing is it's not, just some server somewhere, your data somewhere. You know who we are. You see us, in your community. If you have any issues, you know how to get a hold of us. Even if you wanted to, we can take you over there. We can give you a tour. We can point to the server and say your data is running right there on this server. Mike, do you want to talk a little bit about the 2 data centers and the connectivity that we have going on?
You betcha. Like Mark mentioned, we've got data centers in Victoria and Russell. This offers us the ability to do redundancy between the 2 centers. So in case there's a problem in one, the other takes over, offering uninterrupted service. One of the things that we're able to offer in our footprint via the fiber project that we've got going on now is the layer 2 connectivity. Basically what this means is we're able to connect back to our data center via fiber. Basically it's like having a dedicated circuit between customer premise and our data center, offering very stable, secure connectivity. Most of the time what we do is you connect back to the data center through either a dedicated circuit or VPN connection, a virtual private network connection. But with our fiber overbuild, that allows us to do the layer 2 connectivity. And like I said, basically it's similar to what a dedicated data circuit is. And offering very, very stable, very, very fast speeds back to the data center. You know the people in the community. I mean, we've been around since 1952, I believe, as rural telephone. A lot of cloud-based services are off. I mean, you don't know where your data is. It may be in India. It might be in, Iraq, for all we know, So one of the positives to having or working with Nex-Tech on cloud-based services, we can actually show you where your data is housed. You can actually physically touch it if you want to. So that is what we feel a huge plus for our customer base, being able to work with a local company.
Yeah, Mike, and just kind of touching on the why here, touching on the private cloud and why you'd want to go that route. And I think you hit on a little bit of it early on. You get the redundancy, you get multi-data centers. So, if we've got an issue at one, we're fired up on the other side. You've got the backup and the recovery. That's included. It's not something that you have to worry about doing locally, having a local backup, having an off-site backup. What's your disaster recovery plan? And then the high bandwidth. Like Mike said, we've got fiber connectivity to a lot of our towns, so we get that high bandwidth connection. We've also got some customers that aren't in that fiber footprint, but we're utilizing the VPNs, and things are running great for them. Cost standpoint, you've got the cost of a server on site, maybe a server room, cooling it, battery backup, disaster recovery, security. All those things tie in, and when you compare that to hosting services, they're really not too far off or a whole lot different, and then you don't have to worry about that manageability type of thing. From a scalability standpoint, you can size it as needed. You can start out small, and as you grow, we grow with you. So those are a couple things. Mike, did you have anything on that you wanted to touch on as well?
You bet. I'll talk about the cost a little bit. As I mentioned, earlier, cloud services are all inclusive, so the monthly cost is great for budgeting purposes. You know exactly what you're going to spend per month. There aren't any hidden surprises, where if you physically own a server, you might lose a hard drive or something or other. You might incur a $5,000 bill one month, which is pretty hard to take, especially on a tight budget for that a lot of small companies work on. With this, it's all inclusive at a affordable monthly cost. As you grow, your solution or as you grow, the solution's easy to scale and to meet the needs, and that way, eliminating you have to possibly budgeting for another server or expanding this or expanding that. It's eliminates those capital expenditures, which as a small business owner, I can sure say that that is a huge challenge. Having these unexpected costs creep up, and so it's very easy on the eliminates capital expenditures, and it's great for budgeting. One thing I was going to throw in, and the management is handled by our NOC staff, eliminating the customer needing, to have an IT person on staff, and so that's another way to trim costs for a smaller business.
And that's a great segue into the next slide here. This is actually a picture of our NOC, located right there in Victoria, Kansas, so you can kind of get an idea of the type of technology that we have run and the different tools that we're using, monitoring, not only our network and our private cloud, but we're actually providing some of those services to some other companies and those types of things. Mike, do you want to touch a little bit about on the NOC and kind of the tools that are in place so we can make sure everything's running the way it needs to run?
Sure. Typically a small business can't afford having somebody monitor their on-premise equipment 24/7, which that's one of the advantages to having a hosted service is we've got somebody there watching this stuff all the time. We're monitoring, managing backups after hours, doing security updates and things like that after hours, which if a small business has to hire that done, it gets pretty expensive and usually gets to the point where those are the things that get ignored until there is a problem. So having a hosted solution, all these things that most people mostly are always overlooked are actually being handled after hours, and so that helps us guarantee uptime. And there is no wrong way or right way to do networking things, but there's always better ways, and so we invest a lot of money in those types of things that will allow us to manage and monitor our customer sites, and make sure they're running as efficiently as possible.
So some of the things that we've seen, kind of tying back into some of the reasons and the whys is customers and people don't want to manage servers. They want to focus on the business and not worry about, is my server going to be functioning today? Am I going to have access to the applications? They just want to focus on the business side of things, and with our services, that can be offloaded. High availability. You're not constantly worrying about the backup and the DR plans and what happens if this server goes down and how am I going to bring it back up and how much data am I going to lose and how long is it going to take to recover that. So those are just some of the things that we've seen. Mike, can you talk a little bit about the high availability that we have in the data centers?
You bet. One thing I'll add to the people don't want to manage services manage servers. One thing we're hearing is, I don't want these things on premise anymore. I don't want to manage them. I don't want to try to make sure they're in a climate-controlled environment and things. I just want them off premise. So that's where hosting really, comes into play. The high availability. In today's business world, there is no time for downtime. Most businesses anymore, depending on what type of business they're in, they need constant uptime, or they may retrieve updates from their home office after hours. So things have to be running 24/7. That's where having a hosted solution, we can guarantee those uptimes. Where if your server or network shuts down at 9 o'clock last night and you didn't get your updates, well, you're not going to have accurate data today when you come in and are expected to work. So whether you're an insurance firm or whatever. So that's where high availability really comes into play, and that's where we can guarantee that in our data center.
Thanks, Mike. And we've talked a lot about just the private cloud in general. I wanted to touch a little bit about on what do you put in the cloud, what do you not put in the cloud. And I just kind of listed a couple ideas here, but kind of I mentioned before, it can be anything from a single application, a single server. If you wanted an entire rack of servers, we could do that. And so talking about file print servers, SQL servers, mail servers, terminal server, Mike, what are some of the things that you'd recommend putting in the cloud, and maybe some things that you'd recommend not putting in the cloud?
With connectivity the way it is today, there's pretty much nothing that you can't put in the cloud. It used to be we had some restrictions due to the bandwidth that either customer premise had or our data center had. But with the way connectivity is steadily gone up, It's eliminated a lot of the challenges, where it used to be, like a SQL server, you really didn't want to put that in the cloud because of the latency between maybe the application it communicates with on, on the customer site, the communication between the data center and things. But with, internet speeds anymore, 10, 20, 100 meg, those challenges have basically been eliminated. Email is a great example of things to put in the cloud. Used to be everybody wanted their own email server, and then you had to deal with spam filtering and email antivirus and those types of things. Well, a hosted email solution anymore, Microsoft, Nex-Tech offers them. We can guarantee that there aren't going to be interruptions in the email service because everybody depends so heavily on email anymore that you can't afford to be without it for half a day. File and print services anymore aren't a challenge. Terminal services and Citrix, some of these things, we used to have to depend on those for a good end user experience, or else people didn't want to do cloud computing because of the poor end user experience. Well, with the increase in bandwidth connectivity and things, a lot of those challenges have been eliminated, and so there isn't much that you can't put out there. And actually, I can't think of anything we wouldn't, that we've run into that you couldn't put in the cloud anymore.
That's great, Mike. And, we kind of ran through a lot of information real quick. I just wanted to see, Mike, is there anything that maybe, I didn't touch on that you wanted to throw out there, or anything we missed?
I was just going to throw out the fact that, cloud computing isn't anything new. It's actually been around since the 1950s when, education corporations were using large-scale mainframes and accessing the data through thin clients and terminals. It's kind of interesting how things come about full circle. It's just been recently that the technology has been coined cloud computing. So, like I said, it's nothing new. It's Nex-Tech's been doing it a long time, long before cloud was cool. And if any of these things sound intriguing for someone, I would ask that you get a hold of Mark or myself, and we'd be more than happy to dive into it more, in more depth to show you, how you might benefit from it.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. And Tricia, I'm sure that there's probably some questions or something out there that somebody wanted to ask. So did you see any questions or have anything come across?
I do have a couple of questions. The first one says, we currently have an outside salesperson that uses a VPN to connect to our network. She frequently gets kicked off and has to reboot almost daily. Would this be more stable than that?
Well, I'll say that it all comes down to connectivity. There are so many factors that would play into why she would be getting disconnected. We'd have to look into, what's causing that connectivity disconnect. But having a hosted solution, it offers a different way of accessing the data, so you possibly might be able to eliminate that VPN connection. So yes, it could, help in those instances.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy. That was for Cindy. Have a couple more questions here. Do you have a disaster recovery site? If so, where is it located?
Good question. That is where we've got the two data centers. We've got them, Victoria and Russell. They're redundant, or they are, redundant between the two. So that's our DR, or that's what we do for disaster recovery, is the data is redundant between the two sites.
Okay, that was for Mark. One more question from Shonda. Do you have a list of what the cost would be, or is it dependent on the amount of the gigabytes?
Yeah, so what we do...
Go ahead, Mark.
So what we do for that is from the cost standpoint, it's really kind of a customized approach because, like I said, it's going to be a lot dependent upon what application it is, or if it's a server or multi-server, what type of connectivity we need to have between the sites to make sure that you have that strong connection. So a lot of variables go into that. So the best approach would be, to schedule an appointment or meet with me or Mike or Steve, our sales manager, and just so we can kind of get a really good idea of what exactly you're looking at or what you're wanting to do. If we get, a good idea, we can give you some ballpark estimates, but really when we look at this type of approach, it's more of a customized configuration. So we just want to make sure that we get everything, that you want built into it, so that way we get you a good idea of what the cost would be.
Okay, I've had a few more questions pop up. We have federal confidentiality requirements. How is the confidentiality of the data maintained?
Currently what we're working on is used to be SAS 70, and it's been recoined. I think SOX compliant. We're currently working to get the data centers, SAS 70 compliant, and that entails, having basically outlining, policies, procedures for people accessing the data center and so forth, and so I mean that's in the works right now.
Okay, I have another question from Carl. It says, with Russell's history of poor electrical service, do you feel safe with this site?
Actually, all these are backed up through, or they've got secondary power sources. So, and I agree, Russell hasn't had, the best power, situation or whatever you want to call it, but we've got our own backup power generators and things in the facility. That was a good question, though.
Okay, sounds like we have that one covered. I do have one more question, a couple more questions. Interested in one person is interested in document archiving. Can you talk about that, please?
I guess I don't quite understand what they're meaning by document archiving. I probably would need a little bit more information to be able to, give it a good answer on that.
Maybe they could type a little more on, or we can have them give us a call and visit one-on-one with them. That might be a good way to go about it as well. Other than that, I don't have any more questions. If there's anything you guys want to touch on again, or also wanted to just make sure everybody sees Mark's contact information there, a contact him number and email address, and I'll give you our 800 number if you want to talk to Mike. Since his isn't on there right now, it's 877-625-7872, and just ask for Mike Derfler, and he could answer more questions for you if you come up with any more throughout the day. Thank you all for attending. We'll go ahead and end this webinar. Oh, I also wanted to mention that our next Fastest 16 Minutes in Technology webinar, we moved it up a week because of Thanksgiving coming up, so it's next Thursday, the 15th, and our topic will be Windows 8. Since it's brand new, we're going to show some new cool things that Windows 8 has revealed for us. And other than that, this webinar will also be archived on our nextech.com/free webinar page on our website, so you can rewatch it or share it with other people if you like. Thank you all for attending, and have a happy Thanksgiving. Bye.